I'm just going to send out a quick recording of what we talked about today in the meeting. That way, we get a little bit more of a silent background instead of all of the questions, and just kind of make sure that you have this communication to look at and to share with colleagues who maybe didn't get to watch today. So let's go ahead and take a look. So, just to reiterate, today we are closed for business. We have been mandated to have a cessation of all operations until April 6th. That means no instruction, no events, no athletics, no travel with students. All facilities are closed with the exception of our business office here, child nutrition, and then some maintenance that we have called in to kind of check some buildings and do some things. But other than that, other than very, very limited essential activities, we are not allowed to have anybody in the buildings. So I know there's a lot of people who are starting to get anxious about getting back in your classrooms or getting back into those buildings, but we just can't have it right now. So one thing that is continuing is concurrent enrollment classes at the colleges. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we get to the high school. So, what happens after April 6th? Well, we believe that tomorrow the state board is going to close schools for the rest of the year. They're going to close the school buildings and the campuses, but we've been asked to transition to provide some online learning. And we will also be required to provide some limited special ed services, including like IEP meetings that can occur virtually, um, and possibly some supplemental services and some other things. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We have received word already that the federal government has given states waivers against all to waive all state testing. So no ACT, no ACT Aspire. We fully expect that the State Department is going to waive the U.S. history testing. And so essentially, not going to have to worry about that for spring. We're waiting a little bit of guidance on RSA reading sufficiency for students who have not met the third grade reading 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 level, the grade equivalency, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and then the Driven to Read Act for 8th graders. So tomorrow when the school board meets, we're expecting to see waivers on the following. So all TLE is essentially done. This is our evaluation of our teachers. All the testing like U.S. history, any and all testing is finished. The school hours, so the length of the school day that we're required to provide instruction for is also, there are plans to waive that so that we can provide some online instruction that looks a little bit abbreviated. Like instead, it may be 15 or 20 minutes of reading, 15 or 20 minutes of math. It may just look a little bit different each day instead of sitting in a class for 50 minutes at a time or having that 90-minute reading block, whatever grade level you're at. We also expect that they're going to waive the school days for the year and that we are not going to be required to make up the days. They are going to require that we try to do some type of online learning. And so one of the things that they are looking at, and we'll wait to see what they tell us tomorrow, is that they may make a uniform end date. So right now our school calendar is set to end on May 22nd, but it's very possible that the school ends across Oklahoma on May 1st or May 15th or whatever day that they decide. And the idea behind that, I think, is that they just don't want schools shutting their doors on April 6th and not opening or servicing kids in any capacity at all. The PE time, so if you don't know, 5th grade and below have required PE time, and so they're looking at waiving that. The school boards, the local school board, will determine if students have earned academic credit for coursework and whether students have met graduation requirements. And so basically, there's been a lot of questions that the state board has been getting about, okay, how do we do this grading or how we do that? And so we've basically been tasked with making that decision for our students in our district. The CPR for seniors, so every senior is required to have CPR training and personal financial literacy. And so we expect the state board to waive that graduation requirement. And then the other thing that they're going back, so emergency certified teachers are allowed to be certified a year at a time for 2 years. And because there are limited amounts of testing, certification testing going on right now. We expect that they may offer a third year of emergency certification if we can prove that the teacher has made some progress. Okay. So, what is online learning going to look like? So, again, we've been tasked to try to provide some online learning for all of our students, and to see what we can provide for the next 9 weeks, essentially, 7 weeks, I guess. So, at the elementary, what we're looking at is our grades as of March 13th could possibly be the end of year final grades. And we talked about this in a couple of different ways in the webinar, but we're going to encourage our teachers that you can use those grades on March 13th. That's the Friday before we went to spring break. Or if you have students that are borderline or may reach out and say, hey, can I improve this grade? That maybe by devoting some time in some of these programs or something that you might be willing to bump a grade or be willing to provide a little bit of grace and give students the benefit of the doubt. But essentially, I know it's going to be most difficult to do grading in elementary. And we're going to really task this back to our teachers and see. So I don't want to give you a mandate like you absolutely can't take grades after March 13th. But my guidance to you is that look at that grade that student has on March 13th. And if they choose to do some of these activities and some of these things, you have the opportunity to, again, give them some grace and benefit of the doubt and bump their grade. But we're really determined that students' grades will not be lower than when they left on spring break. So you do not want to be lowering a student's grades or penalizing them in any way because they don't have the ability to use these programs at home, or they don't have the ability to have a parent help them, or whatever their situation is. So we just want to make sure that during this time that we do everything we can to do the right thing for our students. So what can you as a teacher do to provide some online curriculum? Well, I think what this is going to look like at the elementary level is mostly some time recommendations in some of the programs that we already have available. So we have the ability to have students work in iStation on reading and math. We have the ability for MobyMax, I believe, mostly in the intermediate, and Starfall mostly in the primary. And so I want you to really start thinking about what have you been using with students that they're familiar with, so that when you provide some recommendations for some activities and some things that they can do at home, that kids are like, oh yeah, I recognize this, that I can do this, I know what this is. I also encourage you to really try to use social media or use some Google Hangouts or some screen recording like what I'm doing, and read some stories, provide some great grade appropriate home activities. Maybe it looks like some color pages that they can download. Use email. You can use your Remind, Facebook, Google Hangouts. We've got a lot of different tools, and we're going to have to start working together and seeing what can we do. And the guidance here, again, if probably for elementary, is certainly for our lower elementary time recommendations. Like, here's some programs that we've been using. We encourage you to do this, and then maybe a couple of activities as far as like I said, like it may look like coloring, it may look like a virtual field trip, or it may be cooking or doing some type of activity, making Play-Doh, and making a model that looks like something. I mean, there's all kinds of activities that we can do, and so I'm really just asking you to think about those things. And but again, what have they been doing? So what about RSA? Well, here's what the state has told us, that basically anything before March 14th, essentially March 13th, has been, it will be used to determine if third graders have met RSA requirements. No further screening will occur this year. Again, no testing. So you're going to be tasked with going through as those third graders and seeing what screeners do I have that's approved by the state. And essentially for us, that looks like iStation. And have they shown a grade equivalence of third grade level? And have I got that documented so that they're good to go? And if they have not, then we are going to have some virtual RSA proficiency team meetings to make decisions about retention or promotion. We know that that's kind of the framework that of the expectation. I'm sure that you have some more specific questions that hopefully the state was going to provide us more guidance as we move forward with that. What about the middle school? Well, for the middle school and really for the high school, there's a couple of differences here with the high school, but we're going to do kind of the same thing. So that March 13th is they can be recorded as the final grade. If you have kids that can't work at home, refuse to work at home, they're not going to be penalized. That grade that's been given on March 13th is good and final if that's what they choose. If you have students that reach out to you or students that do these activities, and you want to improve their grade, if they're failing, reach out to them and say, hey, if you can, do these lessons in Study Island and successfully complete this, I can give you some credit, and so that they have the opportunity also to improve their grade. And again, I know that's going to look like a little bit different for each teacher. And so you're just going to have to think about that. And I think principals over the next couple of days will be in weeks, maybe the next week or so, we'll be reaching out and we'll start having some of those conversations. This is just kind of a framework and overview of what to start thinking about. So what we're essentially asking you to do is about 2 lessons per week, especially in those core subjects. This might look a little bit different in the electives, but essentially 2 weeks, there's 2 per week, there's 7 weeks left, so 14, maybe 15 lessons at the most. And again, so the same thing that we have told the elementary, look and see what you have. What have you been doing with students that they've logged into, once a week or every day, or what are they in constantly that they know how to use that you can push out to them? And most everybody in the middle school and the high school is very versed in Google Classroom. And so pushing those out through Google Classroom, even providing the link and say, okay, you got to do 2 lessons in USA Test Prep this week, or 2 lessons in Study Island, or I provided you Study Island, emailing your class, again, providing reading suggestions. We're working on getting the AR testing open and at home. Ms. Mullen is going to help us make sure that Renaissance is change those settings and so that they're on board with being able to take our AR test. And then the same thing, like we're all in this boat where you got kids sitting at home. Sometimes parents are still having to leave and go to work and the kids are home alone all day. And so how can you re-engage those students? So start thinking about, again, like Google Hangouts or Flipgrid. If you haven't ever used Flipgrid, it's a great program where instead of a discussion question, they do like a quick little like Snapchat video and they post it. And it's an educational platform, so it's pretty safe and it's free. Okay, so what about the Driven to Read law? So this is 8th graders who take the test so that they can get their driver's license. This has been a little bit harder, I think, on the State Department. They aren't able to just automatically provide that waiver because it also is, first of all, it's in state law, and the Department of Transportation is involved in that. So they're working on that. Hopefully we'll get some more guidance if they're going to provide an exemption for that, or if when we return to school, we're going to have to give an alternative assessment or what that's going to look like. But one of the things to know right now is that the Department of Transportation, so if you go down and take your driving test, they're doing the same thing. Only 10 customers are allowed in the office at one time. Every customer has to have an appointment, and nobody's taking a driving test right now. Okay, what about the high school? So we know that high school is just different. There's a lot of individual things going on, and so this is going to look really different at the high school. But we are going to follow kind of that same philosophy, is that grades as of March 13th can be final. There are some exceptions to that. We know that concurrent enrollment at Cameron has to continue. We know that career tech courses will be coming out with some more guidance for our students on how they're going to have to go about finishing those classes over there. And we really want to make sure that students who have failing grades have the opportunity to make those up. Here more than ever, 9th grade through 12th grade, we know that those grades count and are calculated for scholarships and Oklahoma Promise. And so there are some little bit stricter guidelines that we have to follow. We got to make sure that they do indeed get letter grades and that we just give them the most opportunity that they we can as far as to improve their grade and to get that GPA up. So same kind of thing. Teachers at the high school are going to be looking at providing about 2 lessons a week in your subject to enrich and get kids going for the rest of the year. If you have kids that just absolutely refuse to work and they're happy with that March 13th grade, then that's what it is. And we aren't going to fight that. This is one of those cases where this is really about learning. This is about kids who want to learn. This is about parents who want to help their kids and those relationships and trying out some new things. And so, same kind of thing. Take a look at what you've been doing all year long. This is not the time to teach new skills. This is not the time to go into something brand new. This is the time to look at what those kids have learned and how can you create some enrichment and some application programs so that they can take those skills and build upon them, and that we do not have the backslide so that they forget what they have learned up until this point going into next year. So Google Classroom is absolutely going to be essential, and I don't all of us have access to ClassLink, so we can push out applications if there is an application that you've been using. So we're trying to use that as a one-stop shop for kids to be able to log on. But the same kind of thing, engage those students, maybe checking on those kids, building those relationships. You've got email, you've got Remind, and goodness gracious, our high school kids, of all of our students, are very adept at using social media. And so I know that you guys have been doing a great job with this, and that we can find some ways to find a couple of lessons a week to really bring them in and be able to engage them if they're wanting to learn and keep those skills. So again, there's no testing. We expect CPR and financial literacy to be waived for them. And especially for those seniors, if they're on track and they're finished, as of March 13th, they're happy with their grades. Those grades can be transcribed and they can be done. Concurrent enrollment, however, must be completed. Career Tech, we're still thinking that they're going to do some completion in some way, and we're exploring options for graduation ceremonies. This is the part I think that all of us, it just breaks our heart. We're not really sure how to what that graduation ceremony is going to look like. We're determined that we're going to have one. We're hoping that maybe this clears up and maybe we have a graduation ceremony in August that looks perfectly normal. But there's some models out there that say that this may not clear up and that we may be doing virtual learning in the fall. And so we just wanted to kind of get you thinking about what that might look like. So the other thing, of course, is our AP classes. So we know that those AP classes, we've got to ramp up and get those kids ready to take those tests. The College Board has been sending out guidance for the dates to provide opportunities. It looks like they're going to provide 2 opportunities for students to take those tests. They can take it in March at a 75% reduction of material that's being tested, or they can take it in May. It looks like it's going to be online in-home testing. Never seen this done before. Not sure what it's going to look like, but we're glad that those kids are going to get those opportunities and not lose that. Okay, special education. So out of everything, this is going to be one of the more difficult things, and we are just keep getting trickles of information as far as what this might look like. We expect that we will be having IEP meetings. So there are 3 people who are required at an IEP meeting. Your special ed teacher, your administrator, and your parent. And then supplemental services and other teachers are there to provide input. And so you may be asked to be called upon to participate in a virtual IEP meeting. We're looking at some programs like Zoom, which is maybe a little bit easier for our parents to use. We also have the opportunity to use Google Hangouts. Everybody has Google Hangouts, like all of our G Suite programs. Google Hangouts is in there, and I know Miss Taylor has been really good about sending out some documents about how to use that. And if you would like those, you might email her and say, hey, will you send me these documents? Or she could send them out to the whole staff. I can do that too. But we know that we are going to be having some virtual meetings with parents. So we know right now we have about 50 IEP meetings between now and the end of school. We do not want to put those off and then try to have them all at once at the beginning of next year. So going ahead and having those IEP meetings and checking on those kids seems very doable, and I think we can be successful at that. We believe that supplemental services will continue virtually. So some of our people who provide OT, PT, speech, we believe that they probably will also be Zooming. So that's going to be quite the challenge for them. Imagine sitting with a 3-year-old and trying to give speech over Zoom. Not sure what that's going to look like either, and if that's going to work, but we're going to try it. And so we've got people out there that are experts at that, and I fully believe that that they have some ideas far more creative than I do about how to make that work. All right. I do encourage you, if you have those special ed students, this is another reason why we want to use those curricular programs. Those online programs they do placement tests, they place them in online skills at their level. So we want to make every effort to help this at risk maintain their skills and not regress. And this is a great way to do it, is those iStation, Study Island, MobyMax, those types of programs that if we have ACT Academy for the upper grades, and so that we can put kids at their level and give them some individualized instruction through our online programs. I know Mr. Wynn is going to have more guidance for teachers, and as the OSD releases more information going forward, some of this is going to change, but we want to give you a heads up and start getting you thinking about what you think that you can do from home. Okay, some of you that have student teachers, Cameron is working with those students, providing some alternative assessments and assignments so that they can graduate. But if you had a student teacher, you might reach out and say, hey, can you help me write a couple of lessons? Like, we're tasked with this, and what might you come up with for a virtual lesson? It's a great way to tap into some talent and would help them as well. And then what do we do about students who have no internet access or those who just won't work? So the ones who just won't work, that's pretty easy. Again, all the grades as of March 13th can be final grades. So we can solidify those, put those on the report cards and be done. But if you have a student who has no internet access and who is contacting you and wanting to work, I'm hoping that we can find some ways that we can engage them. I think you might be surprised to know that 98% of our parents who responded to our survey said that they have some kind of internet access. We're looking at some creative solutions. Could we extend our range on our Wi-Fi so that maybe they have to drive up with a parent and sit out here and work? McDonald's, different things like that, or some of them are closed, but same thing, you can park in their parking lot and use their Wi-Fi. We've been told, particularly like around on the mid-high and the admin area, that you can get a pretty strong Wi-Fi signal from your car. So we're going to look at that and see what we could possibly do. I think there's some problems like that are probably out there that you may not be able to solve. Those may have to be solved person by person. You may have to bring your administrator in on that conversation and say, okay, I've got this person who's reaching out for me. Can I make some packets, or can I do something and send to them? I want to caution you about that, mostly because then not so much about getting it to the child, but getting it back and getting it graded, and just the handling of the paper and having the contact or whatever of them having to bring it back. So let's try to be creative and figure out how we could solve those issues. We may have to issue a device to some of our special ed students. We may have to issue a device to some of you. If you're a teacher and you're being tasked to do a couple of lessons a week and you have absolutely no laptop or access to device at home because you're used to having it at school all day and every day, reach out to your administrator and let us know about those problems. So I do want to show you one thing that we've done, and I think this ends. Well, let me do this really quick. So we also had a support staff briefing at 6 tonight, and we talked a little bit about this on the other call, and I'm just going to go ahead. And that is that first and foremost, I just want to talk to you about that we're committed to make payroll while we're shut down. So our business office is able to work, and so we are here doing payroll. Now, if you are a teacher, a certified person of any kind, teacher, counselors, administrators, there is a way in state law during a pandemic or an emergency of this type where we can continue to pay our teachers. And so that is not an issue. We will continue to pay teachers. We will continue to pay the benefits, medical insurance, everything is continuing to pay. Support staff is a little bit different because usually you turn in a time card and or a timesheet, and then those hours are calculated over the year. We are committed to pay our support people while we are down. So you may be put on some kind of leave. There's a couple of ways that the Board of Education has indicated that we can do this, and that is maybe look like administrative leave. Right now, we know that we can give 10 days, extend 10 days of emergency leave and 10 days of sick leave that essentially you could take due to the COVID-19 virus. So, and the only reason that we're really telling you that's our problem to worry about, but we do want you to know that when you receive your paycheck, it may look like you have used some leave of some kind, and you're thinking, I'm not using leave. I haven't been able to work. And that is probably true. That's us cutting through red tape and doing paperwork and making sure that everything is worked. You are not being charged your sick leave right now. The only way that you could be charged sick leave is if we ask you to work and you say, oh, I can't work because I'm sick. Then we might say, okay, well, we'll put you on sick leave, or then you might have to use some sick leave. I don't anticipate that happening, but we just want to give you a heads up. So if we're committed to pay you and you're going to get your April check, your May check, your June, July, and August checks, then that means that you do not need to file unemployment. You are employed until at least August. All your benefits are being paid, medical benefits, all of the American Fidelity stuff, everything you have, whatever hours that you usually have, that's what you're going to be paid for. Now, we may also have to have you fill out a timesheet and put on there like administrative leave or something like that, so that we have that documentation for auditors. But that's about it. But I think you need to know that you could be called into work. So just like teachers are now being asked to do lessons, paraprofessionals, you may be asked to call your student and check in on them, or help assist and make sure that they know how to log in, or we're not really even sure what that's going to look like yet. Secretaries may have to have some people coming in and taking calls. We still have enrollment that's pre-enrollment that's got to take place, enrollments that have got to take place. We're all going to learn how to work virtually and how to call and Zoom and FaceTime and do whatever it takes. But we also know that some of the maintenance on our buildings cannot be left undone. Lawn mowing has to be done. We have a child nutrition program that's feeding kids, and we've got to be able to take out the trash and clean that area. And so there are some things that are going to happen. Nothing is happening until after April 6th. We are completely shut down. You may not be in the building. Do not be in the building unless you're asked. Do not use your keys to come in the building, even to help a student who needs something right now, unless you have contacted your administrator or one of Mr. Hall and myself or Mr. Hans has contacted you. Do not be in the buildings. After April 6th, we may look at this and see what is it that we need as far as moving forward. Okay, I do want to show you one thing before I let you go, and that is how to get in to, why can I not do it? There we go. I want to show you some things that we've started trying to do so that when you get kids contacting you, or some places that you can point them. So this is our school website, cashps.org. First thing you come up. So one of the things you'll notice is under where it says welcome to Cache Public Schools, we've put a link here. This link will take you to ClassLink, which you can then log into using your email address and password. If you need login information, if your parent is like, I don't understand how to log into ClassLink, it's right here. There's an article here on the news that's accessing ClassLink, and here's the link. The login information for all of our students is the same. It's their first name dot last name at cashps.org. One of the things that we do know is that students have to put that period in there in order for the rostering programs to work. So sometimes I'll have parents that email me and they'll say, I can get in, but I cannot access all my programs. The first thing you need to ask is, are you putting a period between your first name and your last name? Because that can cause problems for them. So their email address, just like my email address, first name, last name at cashps.org. And then their password is their first name and their student ID number, which most students know is their lunch number. So like Tammy 12345, notice that the T is capitalized. So it's their first name with the capital letter and then their student ID number. There's a quick guide in here on some ways to use ClassLink. I absolutely love this program and I'm glad we have it in place. It has some really cool things, like you can water your flowers and make flowers grow. And most of the kids, I hope, have kind of gotten familiar. We've done a lot of work with this year, and which is good because students, sorry, I went off this. So students are familiar with it. There's a couple other things in here that we're starting to build, and this is probably where we're going to put some things that's accessible to parents. We are still going to have to enroll students. So if we get students that are new to the district, we've put in here that they can email Ms. Kress. It is going to have to be virtual enrollment. They're going to have to email all their documents, and then once they have all their documents, she'll set up a virtual meeting with them to get them enrolled. And breakfast is going on, so this is the only thing that's going on right now. Besides the couple of things here at the business office, is the lunch program, and that's 11 to 1, and it's grab and go meals through the car line. By the way, they served about 625 or 630 people today. That's about 1,250 ish because they serve a lunch and a breakfast. So it was busy over there, and I think that tells us a lot about our economy and what's going on. That people are kind of scared. They can't get groceries, and people are worried about their jobs. And so we're going to keep doing that. And if you have parents that ask about it, that's where that information is. So, okay, I hope that you are staying safe and healthy. And the one thing I would end with is that if you have any questions, please reach out to myself, Mr. Hans, Mr. Holland. We're all available to answer questions for you and help you through this time. So you guys have a great day, and we will be in touch.